Welcome to Thought Leadership for the New Normal, a conversation series with Sacred Heart University deans. Today we ask our panel of experts, how has this crisis changed what students are looking for, and what are we doing as an institution to meet those changes? Join us now live from the campus of Sacred Heart University with your host, Randy Kay.
And welcome to our 7th episode. Yes, we are sponsored, first of all, by Sacred Heart University and WSHU. And today's topic is on the mind of anybody who's returning to school this fall, parents who are sending a child to school, specifically in the university setting. And we actually have 2 universities represented here today. So we want to know, how's it going to work? What changes can the students expect? How are the institutions meeting these changes? A very important topic. And I'd like to welcome my guest today. First of all, Dean Brian Carolan. Hi. Dean of Graduate Studies of Sacred Heart University. Welcome.
Thank you, Randy. I appreciate this opportunity.
Thank you. And we also have joining us on Skype another dean from Sacred Heart, Dean James Castonguay. Media and the Arts, and from Southern Connecticut University, State University. Everybody. So we'll begin with a question that is the overarching concern for many right now. What does the fall look like for students coming back in the midst of this crisis? I'm going to start with you, Brian, and they're coming back. So what is Sacred Heart doing to make everybody feel safe and have an educational experience?
So like all institutions, we're doing a lot of things, and all those things change quite rapidly due to the evolving nature of the situation as well as the regulations that we're subject to. I'll focus my response on 2 items, though, where I believe the university has made significant strides in preparing for the fall semester. And then I'll speak about both graduate and undergraduate. It became very apparent to us last spring that the shift to remote learning would need, if we need to do that this fall, would need adequate preparation. So one thing that we've done in preparation for this fall is we invested heavily in digital technologies and, more importantly, the professional development of faculty to use those digital technologies. That's something that has been going on all summer, and I couldn't be prouder of the university's response in that respect. A second thing that we've done very well, and this is where I'll put us ahead of our peers, was communication. And communication to new and returning students. As you can imagine, there is much uncertainty surrounding what the upcoming year will look like. Parents are concerned, students are concerned, and it was critically important for us as a university to be transparent with our constituents about what the fall may look like. And quite frankly, that has changed in the last few months. But I think we've landed
and
in a spot.
Every day, it's changing every day.
But we've landed in a spot where I think our communication is very clear, it's transparent, and it's frequent. So we do that every week. Our faculty are in touch with their students, so they should have a pretty good idea as to what the fall educational experience would look like. That's in addition, of course, to all the safety measures we're putting in place.
Can you mention the safety measures? I mean, students are arriving soon, some already have,
I was pleased to see students on campus today, and it's very exciting. But for anyone who's been out and about recently, it's a new normal. The campus, we wear masks. We maintain social distance. There's certainly sanitizing stations throughout the whole campus. We've all taken the Pioneer Pledge, which has committed us as individuals to maintaining safety standards for the entire community. We will all do our part, and I'm confident that the university will have a successful opening.
All right, thank you so much. Jim, do you have anything to add to that, since you're also from Sacred Heart?
Yeah, I mean, I would add from the academic and teaching side that there's been a long, sustained and rigorous process of measuring all of our classrooms, making sure that we can move classes of a particular size into a bigger room so that we can accommodate social distancing. But in the end, the model that we've implemented, we call shoe flex. And I think flexibility is the key term in that regard. And, we learned from going on. Yes, that's right. Thank you. Yeah. But I think the model that a lot of us are using is simulcasting, I guess you could say. So in order to ensure safety, we will have, if it's a Monday, Wednesday class, you have this hybrid experience is one model where the students, half of the class comes on Monday, the other half has the option to Zoom in or a video conference in to see that live, and then you switch back and forth. So what we've tried to do, and there are several other options that we have for the shoe flex model, but the bottom line is that for the students who want that tactile on-ground experience, we've done everything we can to ensure that we have that kind of contact. At the same time, as I'm sure we'll talk about today, Sacred Heart has been really out in front of offering quality online learning for some time. So it's important to us that in the end, we're not compromising the quality of the education for those non-traditional in-person experiences. So we're committed to doing all of that. At the same time, of course, we have completely online programs as well, which I'm sure we'll talk about today.
Hey, thank you so much. Let's talk to Manohar, who's from Southern Connecticut State University, and it's really the same question. So are you doing pretty much the same things? Is it a little bit different? I mean, all of you are from universities that have some on-campus students and commuting students. So Manohar, you want to talk about Southern?
Certainly. Southern was kind of already in the transition from traditional on-ground classes to online and hybrid, and the entire Connecticut State University system was making a push towards that transition, given especially towards our graduate program that expects students to ask for flexibility because of their professional and family obligations there. As far as the measures for safety is concerned, we will be testing frequently. Our dorms are prepared for making sure that there is social distances maintained. Our food services and our library, the facilities in general are already prepared well to receive the students. On the academic side of that, for sure, the class is going to be the staggered and high flex as we all know, in the sense you can either teach it or be flexible enough to either take it online or hybrid or purely on ground. So we're trying to piece together a puzzle which is complex, but it's academic facilities. And then biggest thing was, and I'm very, very proud of our colleagues, the faculty and the staff that helped this transition. And in the very typical shared governance model, we really work together in training our staff and faculty. The IT staff was the biggest winner in this and biggest supporter of that. In that sense, for example, we as staff and as deans have office hours, virtual office hours, as if somebody's walking into the office, but it's just the computer screen. If you then look at things that really matter to student, and that is communication, as Brian was mentioning. We've done a good job, and Southern is on top of this in terms of making sure that students know which classes are at what time by which mode. So I think we're in a good shape as we speak, and students have taken it well. At Southern, our fall enrollments for the grads program, for sure, I'm quoting today's statistics, are looking up very well. In fact, enrollments are better than they were last year. So I do believe that students have taken it in their stride and said, okay, let's fight it together. Let not have the COVID rule the place we can. And I think they are doing it very well.
It's wonderful. Thank you. I mean, running a university or university department has always been complex, and now we've added a whole new layer of complexity. I want to talk a bit about the economic crisis as well. Now, certainly in 2008, 2009, there was an economic crisis, and there's another one happening now. So I'm going to start with you, Jim, with this one. So what's happening on the university level to deal with this economic crisis and prepare students for?
Well, I mean, I think if you go back to the 2008, 2009 economic crisis, that was kind of our last precedent for something like this. And at that time, I think Sacred Heart noticed a pocket or avenue of opportunity, and we invested then in a new graduate program development fund, which at the time, the School of Communication, Media, and the Arts had no graduate programs. But because of the investment in those resources in the graduate area, we were able to build 4 new graduate programs in about 5 or 6 years. And those can be completed in as fast as 1 year. They focus on creating professional portfolios for the job market. And I think that was a wise investment at the time because it attracted a totally new group of students that would not have come to Sacred Heart otherwise at the time. I think undergraduates tend to choose schools, and of course you need to have the major that they want, but that graduate students choose programs. And so it's a way to really attract a different group. But that sort of that focus on training students to be competitive on the job market is something that we focus on, while at the same time providing a foundational liberal arts education that is also very important. So I think in some ways we're prepared for this crisis because of the decisions and the innovative stuff that we were doing before. And I think students still want the same things that they always have. They want professors who are engaging them. They're passionate to pursue topics that they're interested in, and they want to make sure that they're being prepared and getting the skills they need for that next chapter in their life. So, I think Sacred Heart is focusing on still delivering that. And I'd have to agree that I think students are coming back. They want to continue their studies and they want to work with us. And we do really feel like we're all collaborating together, both for the undergrads with their parents, the incoming students from high school, and our graduate students, to really figure out and make this work and accomplish our learning objectives in a very difficult and new environment.
Thank you. So we learned a lot 12 years ago, and a lot of that, like many lessons, stays with us. We may need to reapply it in this new crisis, but at least this one we've done before. Before I move on to the next question, Brian or Manohar, do you have anything to add to that?
Randy, I'd be happy to jump on that question. Thanks, Jim,
Sure.
for adding some color regarding Sacred Heart's response 12 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
12 years ago, higher education witnessed about a 24% increase in enrollments following the economic crisis. Now, that's because enrollments are generally counter-cyclical. The economy goes down, enrollments go up. So the question is, well, where did those enrollments go? Turns out a very small percentage of those enrollments went to the traditional higher education sector. Most of those enrollments went to the for-profit credit-bearing sector. So you're dealing with a large online player. So the question is, what did they do that was attractive to a large body of potential students? And I would argue they did 3 things that were very attractive, and those are 3 lessons that I believe the rest of us in higher education have learned. So let me share those three things, and they actually relate quite well to the programs that Jim spoke about. Mm-hmm. The first is they revolutionized the academic calendar. That is, it's no longer just fall, spring. The programs they run are 12 months out of the year with multiple intakes. If you want to start a program, you can start it in a few days' time. So
these are for online.
For online programs, right? But then we've adopted some of those same practices for our traditional campus-based programs. So we do that at Sacred Heart. So whereas we traditionally used to have 1 or 2 intakes, we now have 3 intakes for many of our campus-based programs. The second lesson learned from these institutions of higher education that did quite well in the aftermath. The second is they also changed the idea of a credit hour. Right? A credit hour is a foreign concept outside of higher education. What they were able to successfully do is they recognize that the trajectory through higher education is not necessarily linear. People start, they stop, they start, they stop, they start, they stop. Sometimes across a good portion of their adult lifespan.
True.
We in higher education have historically made it very hard to do that. Lots of these institutions figured out the way in which you could stack credentials across institutions and cobble together a degree. So the biggest market out there was the adult bachelor's completion programs. Over 50 million, the viewers may not be aware, but over 50 million adults have started college but have not finished it. Right? And so that's an incredible number. That is the untapped market that they were able to leverage by taking some of those college credits, putting them together, and building a degree that had value once they completed it. And the third innovation that was really pioneered in some respects by these institutions is they realized you didn't need a classroom. You needed a computer. So the computer really changed, and now it's not a computer. What strikes me, Randy, is I have students who do their work on their phones, right? So it's incredibly mobile. So those 3 lessons that came in the aftermath of the last economic shock, I think really we've learned from those lessons. So now even our on-campus programs, we do have multiple intakes. We have undergraduate degrees that can be completed in 3 years at Sacred Heart University. And so there's this push for acceleration and there's this push for mobility, right? Students don't want to be confined to a classroom. They want their education when they want it, and that's typically through a device.
All right, very important. Thank you so much. Manohar, I have another question for you, but first, do you want to chime in on this one, or should I move on?
I would add a couple of things to the brilliant points that my two colleagues have expanded on, specifically from Southern's perspective as to what we are. We are social justice mission driven. And for us, it's a big thing that we do not just the economic aspect of preparing our students to have a career that would fulfill their aspirations. The biggest service we want to do to them is to prepare them for careers that are economically, financially rewarding, as well as giving the dignity that they deserve. What we are trying to do here is, in fact, offer financial assistance. We have expanded our packages. The Board of Regents last semester, on our request, gave us some flexibility to increase the financial assistance to the grad students. Then we are also encouraging campus job, that if, for example, a student is not having a gainful employment outside, can we offer them some campus employment? And that's the second strategy to financially support them. The other one we are doing also is the private-public partnerships, and we want to go out to the corporate sectors, not-for-profit organizations, and kind of engage them in supporting our students with our students supporting them as being their interns and their employees, et cetera, just like a co-op model, if you would, in the end. Finally, as Brian was mentioning, being flexible is the biggest gift we as academic institutions can give to the students, so that they do not have to leave their current jobs, so that they can actually get the money coming in from their jobs, keep the experience coming in, at the same time have flexibility to take the classes on. Finally, at Southern last year, we had introduced 4+1 programs where you can have your graduate degree not in 4+2, 6 years, but 4+1, 5 years. In that sense, this year we're also introducing 5 additional, so 11 such programs in 2 years period. And I think this is one of the biggest support in terms that you are making for students one less year of tuition and payment to, if they are on campus living in dorms, etc. But equally important, if you go with the time value of money, 1 year more of your lifetime earnings, because you're going to the market 1 year in advance of what you would have. If you take the final lifetime earning value of that's a very big chunk of money gone to the pockets of our graduate students. So I believe that the flexibility, the financial assistance, in any sense. For example, we also waived the application fee for this year in month of May and then in month of August. And that has given us a lot more ground to cover in terms of having open doors for additional students. We also waived the deposit fee, for example, so that if you are running out of money right now, given COVID, etc., the response is, we'll waive your deposit fee. And we chose alternative ways of making sure that they're coming in versus not coming in. Their decision is conveyed to us, but we're not requiring them to put a deposit fee. So those things, small but really impactful. And the data suggests that students are willing to take any and every help that we can offer. So I think we will be in a good place given all the innovative programs that Brian was mentioning and the financial assistance that Southern has made possible. So I think we are in a good shape. We will be able to prevail.
That's wonderful.
I would just add that
Yeah.
All 5 of our graduate degrees can be completed on ground in as fast as 1 year. So they're fifth year degrees for everybody. And lately, there's been some really good collaboration among the state system and private schools of creating pathways and so on, both from undergrad and to grad. So I think students have more opportunities than ever in this regard to save that time.
So it's wonderful. So it's institutions, private, state, responding to the needs of the students, responding to ever-changing things, including obviously the crisis that we're going through right now. And I don't think we've ever had to make so many changes so fast as we have in the last few months. So we now have a new normal in terms of emerging professional fields and degree programs and the modalities that will define the higher education landscape in the future. You've already pretty much covered that. Is there anything to add, or should I move on to the next question? Anything to new modalities?
I believe the institutions that will come out on the other side with the most success would be those institutions that can figure out how to deliver a high-quality educational experience that in some ways provides the same sense of community that a residential-based experience provides. So it is going to be quite a trick for some institutions to figure out how to leverage digital technologies in a way that provide that learning experience, particularly in fields that require hands-on experiences, clinical-based experiences, what have you. And certain schools are moving in this direction. I think those were the ones that will be successful, and will find that in the higher educational sector will shake out along that divide. The schools that figure that out versus the schools that do not.
Yes, and as you mentioned, there are so many departments and so many degrees, and it depends. Somebody learning hands-on nursing needs more in person than perhaps someone getting a degree in history.
Correct.
And I know for many students, and I will mention that my daughter is a graduate of Southern, but she went via the traditional campus, staying on campus experience through community college and eventually in Southern, and she followed a non-traditional way, but very happy graduate of Southern and private institutions as well. So this across the board kind of partnership is a wonderful thing. But definitely, when I went to school, it was like 4 years to your undergraduate, 2 years, like it was all set in stone, and this flexibility is teaching students new things. Certainly.
We have to move beyond that model.
Right, absolutely.
It's just not as attractive as it once was. The market is demanding a much different experience, whether that be accelerated, whether it be almost mass customization.
Yeah,
where students are really looking for degrees that suit their own needs. And again, higher ed has not been the most flexible in terms of providing that experience. However, led by some other institutions 15, 20 years ago, the rest of us are catching up and now moving past that. So it's a really exciting time, but I do believe those of us that are on the divide of being successful and not successful, I mean, the successful ones will be the ones to figure this out.
I'm going to throw in a question that you may not expect, but I know for many of the people I know attending school or sending kids to school, college, whether you commute every day or whether you're on campus, is more than just academics. And I'm wondering if you could say something about what the college experience outside of the classroom may look like this coming fall for your incoming students. Not just precautions, but we all remember our roommates and holiday sing, sports events. And so college will look different, and yet many students are opting for the on-campus experience, whether it's on a commuter level or living on campus. Can you speak a little bit about that too as well?
I'd be happy to say a few words about that, and then let Manohar and Jim give their observations as well. Similar to what Manohar had reported earlier at Southern, at Sacred Heart, we feel as though we're heading into the fall in very good shape in terms of enrollments. Why is that? There's clearly pent-up demand for the campus-based experience. So imagine being a high school student graduating this past May and June. Certainly your high school, that final semester in high school did not turn out as you expected. So you're entering higher education, craving an experience that you've been promised for some time. That experience will look very different this fall. And because it has to. And quite frankly, I think it's going to be different moving forward for the foreseeable future. That said, we're committed to not compromising that experience. And I think the hallmark of our institution, as well as a small number of institutions that we consider to be peers, is an institution that builds a sense of community and belonging. So the question is, how do you do that while being physically separated from each other? So there are a number of ways in which our Student Affairs Division is being extraordinarily creative by providing a number of activities that will, in fact, leverage digital tools, leverage physical space. We have the ability with our campus, our gorgeous facilities, to, at least in the foreseeable future, house outdoor events, outdoor gatherings. And that looks like to be the direction for the next few months. Now, athletics is a big component of this. That's outside of our control, right? The
Right.
NEC that we're a member of has decided to suspend sports at least until October 1st. So students will not be able to participate in that experience either as athletes or as spectators. But the fact of the matter is we are committed to making our students feel, both graduate and undergraduate, that they are lifelong members of the Sacred Heart community. And that starts the moment they set foot on campus, physically or even virtually. So the one thing I'm quite proud of, I oversee a portfolio of about 1,000 graduate students who never set foot on campus. They're online students, and the one goal of that entire program is to make sure that they are not at all distinguished from our residential-based undergraduate students. And the happiest moment I have is at graduation, because that's the first time when they actually, for some of them, when they come, they travel across country and they come and they feel as though they are a Sacred Heart student, and I'm very proud to play a part in that.
That's huge. Thank you. Yes, being part of the community is certainly a very vital part of a university, any part of education, I believe. So let me turn this. Jim, do you have anything to add about Sacred Heart? And then we'll ask Manohar the same question.
I think Brian did a great job there. I would just say there's no way getting around the reality right now that safety is incredibly important, right? That's our primary goal here, to keep our students, faculty, staff safe. So we're trying to do everything we can to offer and approximate those kinds of in-person experience, but they're smaller numbers. They need to be outside, right? There are just some unavoidable changes. But Brian makes a great point. I'll say that, I've been teaching online courses since the late 90s, and I often have a stronger sense of a learning community at the end of those courses because of the way that we teach those classes. There are things that you can do. Of course, it's qualitatively different in some ways when people aren't in the room together, but you can offer a wonderful learning experience and create a different kind of sense of community, and then complement that with what we can do in the on-ground and in-person experience at the same time. Now, of course, we've done online learning for a long time, and we often thought of designing it for the right student, right? There are some students who prefer that depending where they are in their lives. For me, who teaches, someone who teaches a lot of undergrad, has a lot of undergraduate students, it's that particular experience that we're trying to make sure we don't lose in the right doses. There's also a timing issue. If you were a senior last spring taking senior project with me, it was very disruptive to go online. But I will tell you, I had more one-on-one video conferencing with those individual students. I just did. I would leave my virtual office hours open, and at all hours of the night, and I was working on their resumes, and I said, when the job market opens up again, we're going to get the jobs. And so the quantity of our communication increased at least, and I felt like we bonded in a different way. Don't forget, we're getting high school students who just had their first online learning experience as teenagers. They're going to come with all different ranges of experiences, all different expectations, and they may find that our online classes are quite different, in part because we've been doing this for a long time. And I'm not saying that teachers at the high school level did what they could with the resources that they had, but we have been preparing all summer to offer a robust, rich, engaging, when you have that online component, we do not compromise our learning objectives at all in that regard.
Right, thank you. And then I'm going to throw that question to you as well and add another element to it that Brian and Jim, maybe you can chime in on. So let's add the element of ensuring equity and inclusivity of students from various underserved and underrepresented segments of the society. We've been talking about online versus on campus, but there are a lot of other elements that play here. So what's going on at Southern regarding that?
So let me trace back a couple of things that Brian was mentioning early on. And James too, in terms of what is it that fall is going to look like at Southern, and how the students are going to experience the new normal, if you would. And I must say that I am a very diehard optimist in the situation that we are in. But remember, especially the generation that are going to go to school, college, graduate, undergraduate at this point of time, the resilience and the tenacity is unimaginable. They are very sharp. Let's not underestimate their resilience and tenacity and the desire, the fire in the belly to go and get it, whether it is job. I see it every single day in and out at Southern. So I am making sure that we understand that despite COVID, despite going online, despite going partially online, we've pretty much conquered the the adversity in that sense that given that the high school students had a couple of more than a couple of months of online learning, and I echo James' sentiment. We have been doing in higher education much far longer, and we have invested far many more financial and human resources into this. After March, April, I think we are very ready. We are also making sure that the field placement, the clinical placements that we have for high schools, middle schools, for school teachers, for nursing students, for example, we are forming corporate public-private partnerships to make sure that the students get the opportunity to have the hands-on learning. So that aspect, we all respect, because your credentials, your certifications, your accreditations are all valued based upon the combination of in-class learning and hands-on clinical placement kind of. So we are very, very careful with that. That aspect of learning will not be at all adversely impacted. So students will have that next experience. Now, given all this, human psychology, I believe in our students, I think they will find the ways to have good education and also have social experience that out of the classroom the universities have promised. Now, taking that to the second aspect of equity and inclusivity, I mentioned early on that we are a public university. Social justice is the core of our existence. Now, if you look at equity and inclusivity, there are many layers to it, as you mentioned: economic, academic, technological access, age, family status, disabilities, racial, and gender, and then your sexual orientation. It's now our job, our duty, our moral compass at Southern points us to making sure that when we are planning these online hybrid classes, we are able to see, do people have laptops? Do they need childcare support? Can we somehow give them the facilities to bring their babies, children to classroom? Can we give them space for feeding? Can we make sure that they're given space to have a Wi-Fi if they don't have at home? Can we be flexible in terms of offering the classes so that they don't have to choose between staying at home for caring their family or coming here? Can we make sure that the online technologies are accommodating the disabilities and the need for that? We are comprehensively looking at it, and we are comprehensively taking steps on each aspect of what we want to call complete, wholesome inclusivity. So Southern is committed. Southern is making financial and human capital investment big time to make sure whether you have financial difficulties or you have physical needs or you have family needs, we are committed, and we're making big success of every student who wants to come to Southern. We're making sure that all their barriers are surmounted, and we are there to support them. We've done a good job. We'll continue to do that. I'm sure Sacred Heart is also committed in the same fashion, and I have conversations with Brian early on this year. I think this is a beautiful picture that we're going to paint. This COVID has only accelerated a very positive trend in terms of us responding to the very core needs of the society. I think the trends are beautiful.
Thank you. You know, it's funny, as you were talking, I kept thinking, well, it's been a great accelerator for change, this opportunity for changes that were already in place, and yet we've had to respond very, very quickly to a sudden, huge need for serving the underserved, being aware of where the differences are, who has internet, who doesn't, who needs childcare, who doesn't. So what do you think, with this in mind, and of course you can add to that, but it sounds like you're all doing the same similar things. What do you think college will look like 10 years from now? I'll start with you, Brian.
Thanks, Randy. And I would just like to take a moment to echo
Please.
Manohar's optimism. I share that perspective, and here's why. Being affiliated with Sacred Heart, very similar to being affiliated with Southern, institutions that have as part of their foundational mission this commitment to diversity and inclusivity will be successful. And certainly Sacred Heart's foundational tenets are built on those principles, especially with rooted in Catholic social teaching as well as the Catholic intellectual tradition, which speak directly to these attributes. So again, couldn't be prouder to be affiliated with an institution that shares in its DNA those principles and how they permeate all aspects of the institution. As a result of that, I think we, as well as other institutions like Southern, will be successful in this space. And that is not just because it's morally the right thing to do. It's essential for our survival. Because we're becoming increasingly diverse, we have to figure out ways how to leverage the benefits of that diversity. And similar to Southern, we have, in fact, done that across all aspects of the organization. So in terms of what higher ed might look like 10 years from now, I will tell you, it'll look demographically much different than it does right now. And that's important to recognize, but then also institutions need to adapt in order to better serve those diverse populations. So I would argue that in addition to looking more diverse, there'll be three foundational shifts that will once again separate the successful from the unsuccessful institutions. So one I would argue is a greater investment in academic digitization, right? So that is making sure that not only we're talking access to hardware and software, but leveraging the technological tools in the process of learning. Institutions that can figure that out will bypass their peers quite quickly. The second is bolstering relationships with the private sector. I know Manohar spoke about that a little bit, and I'd like to continue that.
Yeah.
For many, many decades, right, institutions of higher ed sort of existed on their own, right? It's a separate thing. A number of institutions 20 years ago figured out, though, that we need to serve the corporate sector and their needs explicitly. So what you saw, creative partnerships. Think about the Arizona State Starbucks partnership, right? Which, how old is it now? But those are the types of partnerships that more and more institutions are recognizing they have to develop. Why? Because there are workforce training needs that have to be met. And institutions of higher education have to be more responsive to the needs of employers. So I think institutions that could figure out how to forge those relationships with the private sector will be successful. Going back to a point Manohar made, it's also collaboration with other institutions of higher education. Let's face it, demographically, there just aren't going to be that many undergraduate students. So what you'll likely see, and I don't mean to be the doomsayer here, but there'll be a contraction in the higher education space. There are probably way too many institutions across the country. Those that will thrive will be the ones that form the collaborations not only with the private sector, but with other institutions to leverage physical and human resources. So I think that's certainly a way in which the institutions will look different in 10 years. The third, I would argue, is how do you curate the student experience so that's differentiated from other institutions? And so that, again, as an institution, that's historically a 4-year residential-based experience. That's a relatively unique model. We are in the minority there. The question is, how do we retain that while recognizing that students may not necessarily have the need to be physically on campus in order to receive their education? So what we have learned, though, is even with our online students, the 1,000 that we serve online at the graduate level, they still want a student ID. And they'll never be on campus. They still want to feel as though they have access to all the campus resources and experiences that the 4-year undergraduate residential student would have. So that is something that, again, in 10 years from now, we have to figure out. I think we're on our way to figuring out here at Sacred Heart. How do you retain and enhance that experience? Because that is a differentiator when it comes to looking at other peers.
All right, thank you. Somebody wants to chime in. I just love what you said about leveraging the beauty of diversity. Is that how you said it? I think the whole country.
You said it much better than I did.
Well, the whole country could hear that message, and I would be very happy about that. Was it Jim who was trying to speak up? Was it, or Manohar?
Yeah, I was just going to connect the dots and give an example. This summer, we offered for 2 pilot sections of online courses in virtual reality. And so we have students, Sacred Heart really prides itself on, a close relationship with our students and engaging them. So virtual reality afforded us this opportunity in the College of Arts and Sciences to, even though the students are learning online at a distance, we were able to find the resources to purchase and send them all the headsets.
Yeah.
And actually meet in virtual reality. We had a partnership with a group called the Glimpse Group, who designed these rooms for us that are Sacred Heart specific rooms where they could go in and have breakout sessions and present. So we offered a experiencing literature course in the College of Arts and Sciences, and then a communications course in VR and PR. Now, what's great about that is these students need to know how not just to be consumers and users of VR headsets, they need to be the ones that are creating the messaging and working in the communications industry to actually use these technologies. So similar to when the World Wide Web appeared and we started teaching online for my areas, students can learn in and through these new communication technologies that they will also be using when they enter the workforce. And I would just add too, Sacred Heart University, in addition to that liberal arts foundation, I think it's important that students take literature classes, ethics classes, philosophy, religious studies, math, and the arts before they pick up a camera or before they go to work for a business. And employers tell us that, yes, we need to know that they know the technical skills, but we also like to have somebody who has that broad foundation and can write and communicate and solve problems. So we have that liberal arts foundation, and then of course in our majors we have these amazing facilities and so on where they specialize and focus. This is the new liberal arts institution. You do it all, right? They have that foundation, then you build on it. We're also a Catholic university, obviously. Our mission, we are not adding to our mission a commitment to social justice. It is there. It's the foundation of our university, like many other Catholic schools. So this is a moment where it resonates with the sincere mission of our educational institution, and we're very much committed in this upcoming year to looking at issues of equity. We're devoting faculty institutes to talk about how we can do better in the area of our curriculum, look at structural things, and it's wonderful to see this sincere commitment from Sacred Heart.
That's wonderful. And Manohar, I think you've mentioned social justice as well. So you don't necessarily have to be a Catholic institution to have a mission of social justice. That can be across the board. So what I'm hearing is 10 years from now, even greater diversity, probably a continued hybrid of online and on-campus experience, and perhaps that will take the stigma away from I got my degree online, which I think has been there in the past, and also more partnerships between universities and corporations, because that's where the students are going, and the people and the institutions that make these changes will be the ones to survive. And I would imagine that the goal would be to have fewer than 50 million people not completing their degree. So with that sum up, I'm going to turn it over to you, Manohar, to give the Southern point of view about all the things we've been talking about.
I don't know how much time I have, but I
From now, and then add anything else you want to, because we are running out of time, but we have time for you.
Sure. Thank you for giving the opportunity to me to join this and share our perspective, and especially what it looks like to be at Southern now and what it will be like 10 years from now. As of today, now, my message to everyone on the planet is Southern is alive, well, and thriving. We are open for business. Come on in. We have defeated the difficulties and challenges caused by COVID. We will, as I mentioned earlier, we will offer the classes to all the students who want to come in. I do believe this is a new normal now. 10 years from now, there will be no more stigma of online education, number one, because the mainstream of Sacred Hearts, Southerns and Yales and Harvards and Stanfords and whatnot, they will all be not-for-profit, serving the social mission. The mission, it's not money driven, but community building, nation building. So there will not be stigma of that, because right now historically for-profit organizations wanted to go save some cost and going for online. It's going to change. Also, a good news is that that hybrid, high flex, tailor-made, customized private-public partnership with corporations, curriculum driven by the needs of the community and the businesses and the engineering, innovative businesses that it will be driven by what the needs are, and it will be most importantly 10 years from now you will see hardcore engineering, math, STEM, um, applied fields also relying heavily on liberal arts, the human element. How it is that we only used to say, well, there are no jobs for liberal arts. That's not going to be the case. It's going to be, if you are not trained in liberal arts, go back to school, get what is more important, which is the human touch. Social justice, wholesome personal development is part of it. And I think 10 years from now, I see education more widely distributed, widely served, making inclusivity the way we know it much broader concept. And then I also see that education will be more purposeful, more accessible financially as well as in terms of physical, technological access to it. I do believe this one was a shocker for sure, but I think a sleeping giant has been woken up, and we're going to move forward and make this an opportunity rather than a challenge, and make education as a real vehicle, real catalyst of change for better. That's my take on it. And institutions like Southern, as state mandated with social justice, are going to do very well, going to do their impactful job so much better now that we know what education can do. So again, that's me, but I know that everyone at Southern feels that way optimistic.
Well, I see Jim and Brian nodding their heads. So I think I'd like to end on this optimistic note. I thank you so much. Maybe in 2030, we will all look back and say, all right, that was tough, but boy, did we learn a lot from that crisis, and look where we are now. So again, thank you so much to Brian and Jim and Manohar for joining me today from Sacred Heart University and Southern Connecticut State University. I'm Randy Kay from WSHU, and please watch this space to see when our next episode will be and what the topic will be. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining today's conversation. To learn more, visit sacredheart.edu.